there is actually a lot of ego involved in high stakes. So there is like group of people that think other group sucks. There is other group of people that think they suck, and everyone trying to be in some kind of groups and they swapping with each other.
Aleksejs Ponakovs, welcome to the GTOLAB podcast.
Hello.
So I met you almost 2 years to the day. We were playing in an Aria high roller. It was like a 10K or 15K, something like that. And this was just a day or two after you had kind of your landmark victory to that point, the 100K, which we'll be playing tomorrow. And we ran in very different circles. We've been playing a lot of the same stuff for the past 2 years. But before that, I didn't know you. I'm imagining you didn't know me.
Yeah, I had no idea. I probably was even asking some other people, like, who's this guy at my table?
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like I thought you were 23. You definitely look young for your how old are you?
I'm 32 right now.
32, yeah, so
I'm
you were
becoming like 33 this year. Yeah.
nice. Yeah, so your story up until that point, I still don't know too much about it. How did you get to that point? When I see on Hendon Mob, we've been playing, you've been playing a long time. I didn't realize you made a deep run in the main the same year I did. I don't think we played together, but I got 40 something and you got 33rd. Um, that was my dolphin trainer bit that year.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, but what did that time look like, 2012 up until, let's say, COVID time?
Oh, you don't even remember the year. It was 2013.
2013. I'm backing you up a year though. I'm saying you were like 21 in
Oh,
2012 or
right.
something, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, right.
Cool.
So I actually been like playing a lot online to that moment already. So I think I started playing poker 2007. Uh, I was slightly under 18, but like very interested in this game. I was playing professionally Counter Strike, and a lot of my friends were like, "Oh, there is such game as poker. It's kind of it's not free money, but there is an option to win some money." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool," because like we were not actually earning a lot of money by playing Counter Strike. I was kind of young. I definitely don't need money at this age, but everyone are excited to earn something because you can imagine what type of expenses you can have while you're young.
From being introduced to poker, when was the moment that you kind of said I might be doing this for a living?
I would say there was a moment when I was thinking what I should do in my life. Do I want to study something? So I went to university, and while I was studying, I was kind of already playing semi-professionally poker, and there was a moment I was choosing between three options. I go to university, I sleep, or I play poker. So I need to choose two of them, and I choose like poker and sleep.
Very nice. Was it sit and goes, tournaments, cash? What were you playing at the time?
Oh, I actually started playing tournaments. Then I switched to something more stable. I was playing PLO 8 cash games and sit and goes, and I was playing heads up sit and goes. So I believe we have kind of almost similar background, but not really. Yeah, I think that was the most exciting format I ever played. It's like heads up sit and goes. And yeah, then I switched back to tournaments, and I was trying to master myself in that aspect.
How were you with bankroll management in the early days? Were you backed? Did you sell? What was that like?
So at the beginning, I was very YOLO on bankroll management. So I remember playing tournament having four binds only. Yeah, it was as I mentioned before. When you're young and you live with your parents, you don't have a lot of expenses. You can do whatever you want. But at some point, I realized if I want to make it professional, like if I want to make professional career as a poker player, I definitely need to start with bankroll management. And I was baked by one person for maybe half a year or 1 year, and then I won some money and decided to go on my own. And yeah, sometimes I was risking very big part of my bankroll. So I remember after being already kind of professional poker player, but not having a lot of my bankroll was under 100K, and that was 2017. So actually not long time ago, only six,
Yeah.
7 years ago. And that was W Coop series, and I decided to play everything on my own, having in my schedule, like 2K tournaments and stuff. You can imagine it's like almost almost nothing having 50 binds. But I was just trying to take a shot, and at the end of the series I had only 10K left. uh, that's that's not the story you were expecting, but yeah. I decided to kind of focus on learning the game. Actually, I was just grinding during that moment. I was playing like 24 or sometimes maybe more, like between 16 to 24 tables on a peak, and sometimes trying more, sometimes less. And so I was trying to search some new ideas, and there I kind of think that was the biggest boost of my poker career. I won like 100K without any pain for a month by playing a lot. Obviously it's like sun running as well, but yeah, I get all my money back after that. I was sun running in Sunday Million and won it by winning more than first place. Like
How is
uh,
that
we, we,
possible? What happened?
so we chopped five way, and I was definitely considered as the best player at the table, and I had a huge chip lead, and they were trying to make an offer to deal, and I was like, okay, I can deal for the certain amount, and we'll leave something for the first place. So I get maybe like 10K more than first place. So it was, I don't remember exactly, maybe 160K for first, and I get 170. It's
That's
pretty cool.
badass.
It's badass,
That's
and
sick.
it's pretty cool for a young person who is like, my ego was very high after that. Even though I think, I mean, it's not actually scamming people or something like that. I think just it shows that negotiating skills are very important in some parts of your life. And after that, I think at the end of the year I had a bankroll of like 500,000 or 600K. It was pretty huge jump. And yeah, after that moment I never had a year worse than previous year, so it always was better and better. The main part, hard working always gets pays off.
So early on, you talked about, when you first started to work on your game and kind of decrease the number of tables, but you weren't so much working with solvers. It sounds like it was more observational and then putting some of your own exploits in place, seeing how they work out. Is that accurate?
That was mix. It was like uh, kind of trying to create solvers myself by making math, uh, like just calculating how much fold equity I need in certain spots, like working with just combinations. It was sometimes just like 10 hours trying to figure out how to play one hand, you know.
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
it was like a lot of hard working was involved there.
Got it. So when you mention that, I kind of think about, like you said, people were overfolding to check raise, and overfolding, if you're not, reading it off a solver, is going to be either observational, just based on what you're seeing and noticing, or maybe when you mentioned that math, was it something like, hey, I'm going to risk six big blinds on this check raise. They bet two. The pot already had six. Even if I never win, this just needs to win, 40% of the time or whatever. Was that, what some of the math you're referring to?
Yeah, the last part you mentioned, it was something like that. So I was just like, okay, I need that amount of fold equity and this percentage of fold equity, and I'm definitely getting way more if they're c betting certain amount of the range. And usually during that moment, people were c betting 100%. You know, it was just strategy of c bet flop, c bet turn, and let's see how it goes on the river.
Would you say that this early part in your career, before you were very solver oriented, still bleeds through in your game today, given that you got to explore a bunch of different things and kind of try them out without the influence of solvers and charts to that point? Or the game is too tough now where it just doesn't really play a part?
I actually think it's very important. I think it's higher chance that someone will be at the top of the mountain as a poker player if he ever played like a street poker. He's like, he can figure out in a spots that he never saw before how to play correctly, or at least what he thinks is correct play. So I know a lot of players that are very solver based players. They never had this experience by just trying to figure out themselves what's the best play. They will have issues if, let's say, I will put them into the lines they never studied. And
So,
I think it's very important part of the game still right now.
yeah, I agree. And I think that something that comes to mind that I haven't really thought about too much, but I kind of think you're the perfect age to be a great poker player today, in the sense that people who are younger, they can come up so quickly and be such great, efficient players, with their technical skills. But because the player pool is so difficult, it's kind of difficult to just explore a bunch of random lines and feel them out, because you're going to punt sometimes when you do that. But when the games were a lot softer back in the day, you could get away with that. And then the players at my age, I'm 37, and don't get me wrong, I think a lot of the best players are my age, but I think way more of them are extinct and no longer part of the game, or certainly not part of high stakes poker. So when you think about, like, let's say Jason, Nick Petrangelo, Ike, and Stevie, these guys are incredible, and they know how to play exploitatively because, yeah, they played hood poker back in the day, and they also, sharpened their technical skills and got very proficient in that manner. But for every, Stephen Chidwick, there's 100 guys who were professionals back in the day who are just not here anymore because they stayed in the hood poker realm, or, I mean, many reasons. But I do think of you as kind of like about the youngest type of player that could have a chance to play high stakes kind of hood poker and make that work and kind of come up with out solvers, and then also young enough to kind of be forced into adapting and picking up the solvers and all that relatively early in your career, where I'm a prime example of someone who just ignored all of that for like 8 years and let the game pass me by.
I would say definitely there is like big part of the truth what you are saying. So a lot of those like insanely strong poker players that you mentioned, um, they probably playing. I mean, you kind of mentioned people who were playing longer than me, so I have huge respect. When I was like just at the beginning of my career, there were like big giants already, and I think they definitely had this experience the same as I had, like just hot hood poker or how you call it. I like your
Yeah,
version
hood
way more
poker.
than my street poker.
Yeah,
Uh,
same thing.
yeah, same thing. So I think this is very helpful on high stakes because you meet a lot of players you have no idea the way they play, and you need to be the faster you will figure out how you need to deviate from like GTO strategies and stuff, you will gain more EV than all other players. And I think there are like players like Steven Chidwick or something. He's like so stable, and he has in control of all of his emotions as well. Actually, emotional effect for high stakes live tournaments is very important. I see a lot of young players that coming and play high stakes, they're too critical about making punts or something, and they're sometimes scared to make a punt. They are scared to look like a fools on the TV. And I think if you're experienced enough, you don't care about other opinions. You're doing well. You sometimes make mistakes. I think if you never make mistakes, it's probably something wrong about your strategy. You're just a robot. It's very important that you can also forgive yourself. And the best way to be able to forgive yourself, first of all, to forgive your teammates. So I remember at some point I was like also the guy who was very cocky and mad when someone is not giving me a pass, or can't hit the empty goal without the goalkeeper. And at some point I realized I could do the same mistakes, and what I would be thinking of myself if I cannot forgive them. So you need to be able to forgive yourself for sure, and forgive others as well. So this two things that really helping me in poker that I kind of absorbed very early in my life.
Yeah,
And
that makes a lot of sense. I think at the poker table, you have this issue that, when you're playing soccer, when you're playing nearly any sport, there's not too much downtime between your mistake and having to get back in the action. But, here at the poker table, especially the live poker table, it could be a long time before you have another interesting decision to immerse yourself in. So you can just sit there and ruminate forever about it. And I like what you said, where it's not that you don't feel something about it. To my understanding, a lot of the mindfulness experts, they talk about not trying to not feel the emotion, feel it, but try to make the half life of that emotion a lot shorter. All right, so I feel like we are adjacent to some territory I wanted to explore with you. One of the things I was excited to have you on the podcast for is a new segment we're trying out called Beyond the Solver. And I think you and I are, in the high stakes tournament world, two of the guys who are at least more interested than the average person in finding things that are not going to appear on the solver. Certainly, population exploits, individual exploits, etc. And you and I had a conversation recently, a brief conversation in Montenegro, actually on my balcony when we were filming something else. And you were telling me a bit about how you come up with exploits, what the process looks for you. And I was a little entranced. I really liked it because it felt very familiar for me, and it brought up some like very happy memories, because when I'm thinking about exploits and trying to craft them, that's about as joyful as I get off the poker table as it relates to poker. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about your process and how an exploit comes to you?
So first of all, you working of your own expectations about your opponent, and you working with his expectations about your actual range. And there is always, real range and imaginary range. And definitely you need to know your image very well before playing against some other high stakes player. But sometimes you are meeting like new players that have no idea who you are, and you have no idea who are they, and you need to kind of trying to be super precise of what they're doing incorrect based on your knowledge. So let's say something is like theoretically incorrect in their play, and you are trying to figure out how you can use that in your game. So you kind of go that's what I'm trying to mention talking about live poker, obviously, because
Sure.
right now I'm mostly interested about those games. So you're trying to kind of be super concentrated. You need to be super concentrated, and the weaker players you have, not the weaker, but let's say the less GTO players you have at your table, the more concentration you should use to figure out what's the ideas you can find how to exploit them.
So once you find something, let's separate the two between population tells and individual tells. So let's say that one of the smaller buy-ins you might play would be, you've played the 3500 WPT at Hard Rock before, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of on the low end of the buy-ins you might play live, certainly. And that is a population that is very different from most of your play. And I imagine you're going to know a very small sliver of that population when you're at the table. Talk to me a bit about a population tell, if you don't mind revealing one that you might use in a field like that. For example, you sit down and let's just say there's six guys who are unknown to you. Let me give you an archetype. We'll say 55-year-old Floridian dude. You get the feeling he's local. What are some assumptions you might make, and how might that alter your play as it pertains to maybe they know you, maybe they don't know you, maybe they hear your accent and think whatever stereotypes they have. What are some of the things going through your head when you're playing against an unknown, very likely recreational player?
I would say there's like so many different exploits that can be mentioned, and let's say I will mention maybe some post flop exploit that usually is very precise against people you don't know. It probably if someone is at your table and you're not sure is it like a strong player, weak player, and he probably has no idea who you are, it's higher chance he will be making some kind of mistakes. And there is a lot of spots where you need to construct your betting strategy on a turn only using like big size or check. You can start using like multiple size based on your hand strength, just because you expect that your opponent will be not able to punish you. So let's say there's like some kind of strong second pair that should be checking back on a turn or using only big size. But if you're using big size, your opponent is not calling weaker hands, so you just like decreasing size and still betting your combination. This is like pretty simple exploit, and your opponent probably will be not able to start check raising you as a bluff, as a value very thin. And obviously this trick will not work on high stakes. Everyone will punish you for that. But yeah, talking about some uh, live mid stakes tournaments, it's very efficient there.
I love that. I think that's a perfect one to talk about because that I think is an excellent exploit that maybe some of the newcomers to high stakes haven't had enough experience against weak players to feel comfortable doing that. When you explain it to them, maybe it makes intuitive sense, but they just haven't played from that point of ignorance that your opponent might be working from, where he's, not so aware of how he can torch you with check raises and get you to fold, let's say, a weak top pair that you're kind of getting greedy with on the turn. Um, Whereas then there are a lot of players my age and older who they're so used to playing their hand strength and not getting punished that when they try to play against a better player, this, even if only 15% of the time they face a check raise that they weren't expecting, that just, hammers them and they lose all the EV they might have gained and a lot more from these, let's say, light value barrels, instead of polarizing their range and, let's say, B25 and check on the turn. They're like, well, I've got top pair 10 kicker, let's B75 and then we'll figure it out on the river. And that's the kind of thing that I think a lot of low stakes live cash players and tournament players from a slightly bygone era are really good at against bad players, and then gets them absolutely smashed going up to the next level.
Sure. I think this experience, like in general, having experience playing against different type of opponents is very important. Even though sometimes playing high stakes, you can meet players that are from that type of player category, and yeah, that's very efficient as well. Talking to a lot of players who are weaker and let's say they might be recreationals and stuff, it's also very important to understand the way they think. So it helps a lot, well, when you're trying to deviate your strategy from GTO.
Yeah, talking about the way players think, it's so interesting. I do a lot of coaching. I know you do a lot of coaching. I don't know if you coach any recreationals, but I do. And one of the things that's been very informative for me is how often a thought that would never occur to me informs the bulk of their decision. Something like, "Well, we were going on dinner in 3 minutes." I was like, what? Like, re-entry's still open. What's the difference? I don't even really understand what's the relevance. They're like, well, I don't think he would bluff. And I go, of course he would bluff. What are you talking about? But it really makes a huge impact on their decision making process. And there's all sorts of these thoughts, and sometimes they are really accurate. Sometimes it's a hand where it's a recreational versus a recreational, and the fact that there are four hands left in the day is hugely important to their ranges. It has a very, very large impact. Or the fact that somebody flew in for only this tournament might have a very big impact on how they're going to construct their ranges on literally every street. I had a question for you, though, kind of along those lines, which is, you talked about the importance of playing against different player types. Is there a moment you can think of in the past few years where you felt really humbled by a non pro, a hand that you were like, oh man, I was way off on how I was thinking about this spot? This guy either just lit me up or my assumptions were just so far wrong that I need to reconsider how much confidence I place in this type of thinking. Anything like that?
To be honest, I don't remember exactly something like that, but I can tell it happens way frequently than people expect. So, especially when I'm trying to there is part of my careers where I'm testing. So I'm very like GTO player, or I'm like completely like the player that deviates every second. And let's say during the moments when I was deviating every hand, not every hand, but let's say every day as max as I can. Uh, During those moments, I had so many wrong assumptions about the ranges of my opponents, and I was like, uh, there were a lot of plays where there is like clear border. Is it a like genius play or terrible punt? And I think if you're trying to find a highest TV game, you need to be able to let yourself to make such mistakes, because if you're not trying, you're never gonna get like high TV lines.
How do you, so bragging coming here, but how do you separate instinct from bias in terms of the result? So, like, I'm on this roll where the last 6 times that I did something that was kind of absolutely insane by most people's, um, best guess, it kept working. I'm still on this run, and had they all gone south, I would have a very different opinion at this point. You know what I mean, though, when you're going way off script and you're on a roll in one direction or another, how do you really separate from just the result, whether or not you were, genius or just a huge buffoon?
I think it's way better if you have some kind of expectations and you go for it and you are wrong, rather than you have some kind of expectations and you're scared to make a move. I think it's you need to be fair to yourself. Let's say if you expect your opponent is super overfolding on a river, and you decided, okay, I'm going like for a crazy overbluff, you need to ask yourself how thin you will go for value. So if your opponent is significantly overfolding and you still value betting your like top pair, top kicker, it's and you bluffing maybe like second pair, something is wrong.
Mhm,
uh,
mhm.
so you need to be fair to yourself what you would do with your value part of the range and what you will do with your bluffing part of the range for sure.
I hear a lot of that in mid stakes pros, um, where there's not a true harmony between their analysis on one street versus the next. And I'm, it's saying, well, did you think he was too sticky or did you think he was too tight? What's going on? Because I'm seeing this kind of lack of harmony in your analysis, and it all sounds very pinned up to justify the actions that you took that seem to work, but there's not really this, this true accuracy in how you feel about each thing. I feel like, but I'm not, saying that they're naturally dishonest people. It's just I feel like there's this wave of momentum towards the result to kind of go back in time and make everything harmonize with the result, that I think is just, it's so difficult. I feel like I'm not a results oriented person, but I just think the bias is so strong where, like, I ask students to not give me the result in hands when they text me, because as removed as I think I can be, I still feel like there's going to be at least a 5 or 10% bias that creeps in, especially if the result is somebody holding two cards that I never would have guessed. How does that not go back and kind of slightly inform your decision,
Yeah, I mean it's still fine to take results into considerations, I think, but you need to take away like emotional part of that for
Mm-hmm.
sure,
Makes
because
sense.
sometimes you have like few assumptions and you're completely wrong, and then you just like but maybe he had a bad day, and like next 99% of the time he will play what I was expecting, but today he just had a bad day and that's why he played this way. No, you should take your mistakes, you should live with them and make new analysis for the next day, for the next spot against that type of opponent.
So that prompts another question for me, which is that I think for nearly everyone, maybe this isn't true of some of the top 100 or so players in the world, and maybe there are some other minds who don't really think exactly this way. But I think of the hands you played, for better or for worse, they are great springboards to studying and to kind of inspire you to work on a spot. So maybe you make a mistake because you didn't understand the way the turn played after a check raise in this situation. And now this hand where you made a mistake has inspired 4 hours of studying into a spot that's going to come up a bunch. But the downside is all of it, or at least some of it, is going to be colored by the way you played that hand initially, which may have some bias, as opposed to when you're looking at other people's hands, there's just so much less emotion involved. Maybe it's not as inspiring for some of, especially the recreationals or people who just don't like studying all that much. But it seems much easier to remove the emotion when you're just watching a coaching video and seeing somebody else and how they played their hand. What are your thoughts around that?
I think you're right, because I have experience by coaching other players, and I think watching your own hands and watching your students' hands is completely different experience. You can be deeper in a thinking process, and even though but it's maybe it's less accurate comparing to what you feel exactly, because you have dynamic of the table. Sometimes when you make analysis of your student decisions, you fully not understand dynamic, because it's the same as going to the doctor and doctor is asking you like what type of issues you have, you sometimes forget few important things, and the same student might not tell you like very important part of the hand, and in the end he will be like, oh, but I actually forgot to tell you, after you make already like 1 hour analysis for him.
So let's talk about individual exploits. Um, we both play in these tournaments that have very small fields, and some players you play more or less with, but you kind of develop a dynamic with nearly everyone. Now, some of those people, it might be that you play pretty much straight GTO against them. You think that they're not trying to exploit, and hey, they play really well. I'm trying to kind of follow the solver as best I can. And then there are other players you may go way off script against. How does it play in? If you can talk a little bit about that kind of cat and mouse game that you develop with each individual and what plays into that.
So, talking about like high stakes, mostly what I'm playing right now, there is a lot of exploits against like still kind of random players that you are not sure the way they're gonna play. They have a lot of like natural mistakes that mostly I'm talking about like recreationals, high stakes VIP players. Um, and they are kind of creating as well interesting dynamic between two strong high stakes players. Like, let's say if there will be like Steven Chidwick sitting in middle position, I will be sitting on a cutoff, and there will be a kind of weak player on a big blind. Definitely we will have not GTO ranges both of us, and there is some kind of leveling wars involved that is very interesting. And it's very important to know your uh, opponents in real life as well. I feel like there's a lot of things that you can mention. What type of people are in real life helps you to be deep in your heads, in your mind, in your opponent's minds. So even I was joking about the way people play tennis. We have kind of big group of players that play tennis, and kind of similar matchups against each other, but by the style they play at the court, you can tell what type of players there will be at the poker table. It's kind of, there is some similarities, but okay.
Am I the exception to that rule? I play tennis very differently from how I play poker, I think.
I think you're not. I think you still, let's say your technique is definitely not the best, but you are the person who is very sticky, and you can be trying to reach every ball, and you never slow down in a way that you're gonna play
Okay,
the
that's
spot,
fair.
you're gonna play the spot till then. And
But here's the counter. That makes a lot of sense. I was wondering how you were going to craft a narrative to make that work, but that does work. I am, by pretty much everyone's account, a very aggressive poker player. Fair.
yeah,
And a
not really.
medium. Yeah, okay. A very conservative tennis player. My whole tennis strategy is to just keep the ball in until the other person misses.
Right, but I think the reason why you're playing like that is just because, let's say, your opponents are making mistakes and you are not forcing yourself to go for a risky move. But let's
Sure.
say if they're gonna be someone who is playing way stronger than you will go for like sneaky plays, you will go for winners, you will be more aggressive. So the same, I think, gonna happen in a poker. Let's say if you're gonna play in Florida, in American field, when everyone knows you, they saw you playing on stream like insane pots, you know your image, and there is a lot of like simple spots that you can get your EV, and you don't need to go for like insanely like deviations for the stacks. At the poker table, you can kind of manage your stack by building your chips. I don't know, in a more simple spots. Like talking about the individual exploits. As I said, there is a lot of leveling involved, and there's a lot of extra information that you can use, especially in live poker, maybe some live tells and stuff. Obviously I'm not going to tell any of them because for me it's pretty high EV. But yeah, I'm not sure what I can exactly mention for that topic because it's pretty important, still important part of my game.
Yeah. Can you talk about the process of kind of taking one data point and helping that inform a decision later on. So I'll give you a data point, for example. Let's say that a player defends big blind versus cutoff, 80 big blinds for chips, and they check call king queen against you on king 9 4 rainbow when you go b33. And then the hand plays out and everything's relatively normal from that point. Let's just say, actually, there's no such thing as normal. So let's say the turn you check back a deuce, and then the river is a 2, and they go b33, and you bluff catch fives. What do you take from that? How might it inform? You don't know anything about this player to that point, and let's say this happens in the 100K against an unknown tomorrow. You've never played with this guy, random American.
Sure. Let's say if I would consider that my opponent is a regular that I don't know the way he plays, I would be a bit um, aware that that might be play that he just created an image. So I always have like second, third level of thinking process. So I wouldn't be that sure that his check calling range is so protected. Maybe he show up with this hand to have very protected calling range, and he knows I'm not gonna overbluff ever against him in those spots. And also, his 33% on a river gonna be super protected, and his check raise on a flop gonna be like super over bluffed now. And yeah, I would be trying to figure out, was it like a image play, or was it, or can he adjust to his showdown and completely change his strategy, or not really? That would be a very important part of my next decisions. Obviously, to make analytics what that hand exactly tells you, there is uh, not enough check raising for value. Probably gonna be maybe not even overbluff check raise. Maybe there is just like no check raise line.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, definitely super protected check calling range, and not the opponent is not going to try to get random value when he blocks all the bluff catchers in the world. He will try to milk your weak holdings.
Got it. I love that you started from a place of distrust. Poker is this game of deception. And you said, let's not just assume that I know all this about him. And that's something that I hear from a lot of regulars who have not, made it to the top yet, that they get very consumed with one piece of information and they love to feel as if they know a lot, especially when it comes to live tells. That's a whole nother thing. But they'll say, this guy on the turn, he looked pretty worried about his holding. He was showing some concern, and then he showed up with the nuts on the river. So now they say, whenever this guy looks concerned, I think he has the nuts. And you've literally watched one hand like that. He might just look concerned every time on the turn. This might just be his resting face. But whether it's for live tells or whether it's just bet sizing and their actual actions, whether it's online poker or whatever, that one data point for you to feel like you know so much about them from that is to give them no credit as another human being who is playing games with you.
It's also very important when people are exchanging notes, and they have played hand against someone who treats you as one player, and he will treat differently your friend that you giving a note. So sometimes you might give like a bad, it's sometimes bad when you're giving note to your friend, especially when the hand was playing against you. So you can tell that I think exchanging notes with people who will see the hand played against someone else, you can tell, but you need to be super accurate what type of information you are telling. It should be like full hand, including like his opponent type of player. I don't know, time, like part of the tournament, and what type of the tournament. Someone is like maybe first time playing high stakes, and there's so much information, and I like to kind of create portfolios on my opponents and try to make analytics outside of the series. So when I have free time, like 1 week or something, I'm just like trying to figure out what this guy is thinking of while he's playing, because even though just understanding the way he thinks is way more efficient rather than just like knowing what he's type of player right now, because he will change. People are changing in a time. After 2 months, he will be playing completely different strategies, but thinking process probably will remain the same.
I love that. I think that's the same with understanding the solver is not simply, especially once you get to the turn in the river, not simply reading, the outputs, but understanding why is it giving me these
Hmm.
outputs. And the same goes for people. If you just say this is what he does, then even if you're accurate with your assumption, you're going to have almost no intel on what that looks like in 6 months or in 2 years, because of course it's going to change. We are all playing different, than our past selves. And if you understand why, what the thoughts that he's having are that lead to this, not check raising a holding that most people would check raise, then it's going to really help you also have some information about how he plays adjacent spots, but even sometimes spots that are completely dissimilar from the one that you played against him. And then it'll have you maybe ahead when it comes to 8 months down the road saying, I remember when I was at that stage and I thought that was a good exploit. And the next exploit I stumbled on was this. Maybe he'll follow my, train of education there. Are you ready for a round of the game? The card game we're always playing? All right. I'm going to do a random card on free promotion for random-cards.com. Don't think they make any money, but all right. Hopefully my blur background doesn't take us away.
So far, is good.
You got the
Okay.
card?
Yeah.
All right. So, as you know, ace is high, two is low. Subjective question. Question number one, you have to get a tattoo on your forehead that will not be removed your entire life. This is what you get tattooed on your forehead.
I will take ex girlfriend name.
Ex-girlfriend's name. Excellent. All right. Talk about that in a moment. Let's go with question number two. You are heads up in the main event this year. Your opponent is from this country. It's going to be a randomly selected player from this country. So let's say that there are 28 Ukrainians in the field this year. One of them will randomly be your opponent. If it's American, there's 6,000, one random American, etc.
So you want me to call a country?
Which country would you like
Hmm.
your opponent to be from? Ace is the one you most want. Two is the one you least want.
I would say France.
France. Okay.
France.
This is feeling coordinated for me. So the ex-girlfriend's name, I think a lot of people might jump to a two or a three, but look, there's swastikas and racial slurs and some really bad stuff. And, only your wife and a few other people know it's your ex-girlfriend. You can just say like, I love my aunt and she died and this was her name. And it was a very strange way I chose to honor her. You know,
Maybe another question, because like two might be too far away from each other
we're
for you.
we'll get another round in. I like two, and then we'll get a separate two. I want it to be difficult. France is not going to be the toughest, but it's not the U.S. and the U.S. is your ace probably because we just have so many recreationals. Obviously, they don't have to travel as far. I I kind of have France middle of the road to be honest, but maybe not a lot of the French recreationals travel. Um, the ex-girlfriend name is very low. I think you're just thinking the French players are better than I am, or you have better intel on how few French people outside of the elites come. Last piece of info I'm going to say is that I don't know that I've seen almost any of the French high rollers playing in the past few high rollers, so that makes the field softer. I gotta. The ex girlfriend name is so bad that I kind of have to anchor low because I don't know if you're thinking about like swastikas and racist shit and awful, awful things. Four.
You're wrong on expectations.
Oh no! Oh no!
I'm thinking of swastikas and stuff.
Oh man, you were on it. God, it's a eight, six,
Higher, 10.
10. An ex girlfriend's name is above
Yeah, I
average.
mean it's just like It's nothing crazy.
Oh man, we're off by
I mean, I
six.
was just imagining like what you can do. You can actually do even not tattoos. It could be when you scratch your skin. I don't know what's the name.
Oh, you
Uh,
could make it look like you've got like a skin problem, like a
yeah, yeah.
rosacea or
It
something.
could be like this. It could be. I mean, I have a friend that has terrible tattoo. It could be like teardrop. Yeah,
You know what that is, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it's way worse.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. But on your forehead, it'd be, I think I might want a skin condition. I feel like that would be better to me than like, yeah. Oh man, we're off on the 10 for France feels very accurate though. That's kind of I decided we must not be harmonized there because I did not. Man, I've gotten the vibe that your wife is a really cool person, but I didn't know she'd be that chill that you're like, sure, let's throw the ex girlfriend's name down. Man,
For me, it's easier because my wife is my first girlfriend.
ex girlfriend then is not a fair comment, but fine, fine, fair. All right, we need a redemption round. That was off by six. All right, you're at the table. We're gonna say in the 100K tomorrow. Once every level, you're gonna have to do a kind of disgusting behavior at the table. Pick your nose, fart, sneeze into your hand, scratch your armpit, whatever. The only thing is you're like 90%, whatever this behavior is that you do will not get you kicked out. Okay.
Hmm.
So ace,
90% plus.
yeah, you feel 90% or better. Like, so a
So,
two,
so I feel safe, kind of, that I'm
yeah,
not banned.
yeah. We're not talking Esfandiari pissing into a bottle under the table.
Yeah, yeah, okay, okay.
Um, but yeah, so a two is the worst behavior. An ace is like, whatever, that's not so bad. Who cares?
Every free hands,
Every level.
every level.
So 40 minutes tomorrow because the 100K is kind of turbo for some reason.
So I'm trying to attract Martin Cabral into conversation with me.
That's an interesting, disgusting behavior. Okay. Let's go with you're watching a documentary tonight. This is the subject matter of the documentary.
It will be Life of Ants.
Life of ants. I actually think ants are pretty fascinating, but we might be on different wavelengths there, which I mean, hive minds are just so cool. All right, let's see. Life of ants. Got an ant fact for you, by the way. All the ants in the world add up to, I can't remember actually, I can't give you the fact, but way more than all the humans. Like the ants, the ant population on Earth, we're pretty much living on their planet. There's like way more pounds, kilos of ants than there are humans.
Yeah, we don't even see them, right? They're like deep in earth sometimes.
Yep.
Not deep, but still there.
Yep. All right. Now, how much did you like A Bug's Life and Ants? That's a good question. 32, you were probably like 14 when they came out. Attracting Martin Cabral to conversation. I played with Martin a bunch the last 2 days. He was in Martin form. He's reared up and ready for the World Series of Poker. Comments for everybody. I don't feel very solid about this. Gonna go with 7.
Kind of far. Yeah,
Oh
it's
no.
it's good that you don't understand me. Now I feel safe at the poker table.
All those
It was
big reasons of
it
luck.
was pretty high. It was Jack. So
Okay, we're on the same
I don't
territory with
feel
the ants.
too bothered by talking to Martin Cabral. I think I'm pretty tolerant. I can tolerate his the way of he acts, and
I'm taking responsibility
sometimes
here.
yeah,
This
sometimes
was
it's even fun for me.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I would say with those answers is probably exactly where I am. I just read you wrong. I think those are great. Those are great jacks. This is
Okay,
this is on me. Not giving you enough respect.
I feel very good about my value bets and bluffs during this series now.
Yeah, that was you've got the upper hand. I'm not going to say it's going to extend to tennis, but next poker hand I'm in with you. Yeah, I'm just going GTO.
Actually, first question, I think you could be more aware that I'm trying to use all the information. So I'm trying to you like think of everything about what can you make a tattoo on your face.
It's fair. I don't want it to go without a comment that you labeled engaging Martin Cabral in conversation as a disgusting behavior you have to engage in.
Kind of, yeah. I don't know. It's like, well, I'm not even sure what's gonna be an ace. Was it like something that is neutral, right?
An ace, yeah, I would take like an ace is like doing that, or maybe like touching the side of my nose. Like it's not whatever. Touching your face, some people might consider in the realm of disgusting when you're playing poker, but no one's going to even remotely comment on it. Maybe like
Sure.
something like that.
I would probably choose eating one nut with the hands.
Oh, yeah, I like that. You like a polite cough.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So
You
kind
get
of.
this guy?
I mean, not maybe it's actually king.
Yeah, nut might be king. I like that. Let's move to strategy corner, new segment. So, one of the conversations that I hear very often among top players that at least the terminology doesn't seem to be the same when you hear mid stakes and lower stakes players talking is around easy to overbluff or difficult to have enough bluffs. Can you talk to me a little bit about what it means that a spot is easy to overbluff?
It can a spot that you can easy overbluff can be very different. Like they can be so different. So first of all, some players can just think of the hands that you have on a river, and you just bluff them, and you just have a lot of them, and maybe there is like not enough value to cover all your bluffs, especially for the size that you are using. But there is like so much information that you can have before judging someone for over bluffing, or judging yourself that this is like very over bluffy spot, and you are on a pattern. But I think it's very important to start the hand from the beginning, like what's the opening ranges, defending ranges, and so on. So what type of hands your opponent will put into free bet range, because sometimes people are not free betting certain part of the range, that they should use like 10-15% of the time. They usually put those combinations into full frequency call, and some of the hands that they should like free bet maybe 40 or 50% of the time, they're just using all the time. And obviously, pre-flop is not considered as a bluff or value. It's just like the way you want to play your hand, your actual combination. You can't say that free betting pre-flop 6-5 suited is a bluff. No, it's just whatever. It's constructing strategy around this hand. But when you talk about the very polar strategy on a river, when you can tell like exactly it's a bluff or it's a value, you start your hand from the pre-flop, you drive it to the river, and some of the spots people are playing to unprotected, let's say, not checking, like we were discussing before, what type of exploits I would easily call about mistakes, population, like what mistakes population tendencies and how you can exploit them, like by having multiple sizes on a turn. So when someone goes and uses wrong size, not theoretically approved size on a turn, on a river, he will definitely have completely wrong range, where he will not have very strong value hands, and he will not have very polar bluffs, and maybe he still will have like a lot of like those polar bluffs, and he will go for like, let's say, overbet on a river. And you can obviously tell that there will be no values covering this size on a river based on the combination of sizes he was using on the previous streets. And I mean, those spots are obviously overbluffed. Yeah, so there is so many different situations that can you can put into this topic of overbluffing, or it's not enough value, and too much bluffs normally.
Let's talk about range construction. You and I talked in a different segment in the hand you played against Leon Sturm about how he's constructing his range. And you mentioned there are a variety of possibilities on the flop, and this is something we see with a lot of the, pre-solved outputs from, say, a GTO wizard, but also just any solver is going to put in, it's going to give you whatever bet sizes you test for. And you may have this very mixed strategy with four bet sizes, or you might just be playing one size. How do you think about constructing a strategy? How do you think a recreational who maybe only devotes, let's say, 2 hours a week to studying should think about range construction and how that impacts turn and river?
Normally, the simpler strategy you are creating, probably the less extra EV you can gain. Uh, if you just, let's say, studied how to play one size, and the spot you can easily construct like multiple sizes. It's obviously you can expect what your opponent were not studying, and you will try to kind of construct your strategy around that size. Let's say, but it's still way better if you never studied that yourself, or you are not a hood poker player, uh, to not try to play those lines if you never studied them, if you will be not able to get any EV. And I think what I'm doing really well, uh, I've been deviating all my life from regular GTO strategies, sometimes even on purpose, by trying to make life of my opponents harder. And I think I'm getting more EV. But sometimes when you play very deep stages like ICM stages, there is also important sometimes to have transparent strategy, when you have transparent strategy for your opponent, because then, um, both of you not losing EV, but no one from the table actually getting extra EV. But sometimes when you're trying to create, when you deviate a lot and you're constructing completely different strategy, comparing to GTO, and you, let's say, forcing your opponent to call wider on a river, or something like this, for your strategy you still know where you're going to make EV in chips, but maybe you will be losing, and your opponent will be losing even more with his strategy. So by itself, strategy is not max EV in this situation, even though by chips is the best strategy. And in such case, everyone at the table will be earning money except both of you. So you need to be careful when you are mixing those ideas.
You have brought a lot of talented online players into the live high rollers. There's a lot of guys. You could mention some of the names for me in a moment. I don't have them all, and I don't want to leave anybody out. But a lot of the people from your part of the world, you have been coaching, and they have kind of made an entrance onto the high roller scene with various levels of success, as kind of happens to all of us. Can you talk to me a bit about the non-technical coaching? I would imagine these guys have various reactions to losses, to blunders, etc. And you're kind of maybe you're the Papa Bear in this situation, who's kind of been there before and had great wins, great blunders, etc. I don't know if great blunders is the term, but point being, I would imagine that your coaching goes beyond just sharpening their technical skills and giving reads on players. I'd be curious to hear some of what goes on in terms of helping people through their adversity, in terms of, oh man, I feel like I might have just given it away live, or this guy's really intimidating me, or whatever other adversity some of these guys have gone through, and some of the help you've provided.
Um, Normally, like, coaching is very, very different. Depends on the goals of your student. So some of them maybe just limiting themselves, and they just want to play online and just, I don't know, ABI 500. Then obviously, like, most important for them, just like to sharpen their technical skills, and their ability to uh, get away of emotional aspect of results, because like tournament poker is very, like, variance is insane. Sometimes you just like struggle to win a money in a years, like 1 year, 2 year, it can be like for a very long period. If we talk about the players that have goals like to succeed, to become like the best players in the world, I kind of think I have kind of, let's say, I have good experience of making my own mistakes, and I can give away like the way I managed to beat all these problems in my life. When I was just joining high stakes scene, I did a lot of mistakes that I know I will not tell them right now because this is kind of part of the coaching as well. But there's a lot of things to tell to the students that's coming from online poker and just gonna play like high stakes.
What are, along those lines, what's your biggest life leak at the moment in terms of 5 or 10 years down the road? You hope you're doing a lot better at this than you currently are, whether it's poker or outside life.
Think I'm sometimes not honest with myself, like explaining my own image. So I think uh, the way, let's say I feel I'm very balanced player and stuff, but there is definitely a lot of things in that I'm doing disbalanced while I'm playing, and some people can know that, and I'm sometimes ignoring that. So I'm still on a page where I'm trying to absorb a lot of information that people have about me and use it correctly, but sometimes I'm completely wrong, and
Hmm.
that's where some other people opinions helps you a lot. So it's
Makes
nice
sense.
to have like crew of like I don't know, group of friends that play those high stakes tournaments, and they can tell where you are wrong, because sometimes when you, let's say, at the top of the level, you don't know what to work on, and some friends can help you with that, or coach.
I think that's one of the best parts of the poker ecosystem that, at least in my experience, my friends who don't play poker don't seem to get enough of is healthy criticism. That I think when you're a teenager and young 20s, at least guys, we shoot the shit and we make fun of each other, and you kind of, your weaknesses and some of the flaws, things you need to work on, get exposed rather quickly, usually in some humorous way. But the impression I'm getting, and I'm 37, so I don't have all the knowledge on this, but is that as people kind of get further along in their working life or whatnot, this, I don't know if you know the term corporate speak, but like phrasing everything in a very, we'll say, politically correct way to make things very palatable. And it's not to say, I mean, I don't think 35-year-olds should be talking like 14-year-olds and throwing around the terms we would
Yeah.
use then. But at the same time, I feel like in poker, you develop a thick skin and you realize that when someone's criticizing your play and your actions and some of your thought processes, that they're not trying to break your identity or being mean, that this is just what good friends do and they expect it back in turn. And I feel like one of my observations is that a lot of friendships that maintain throughout the years seem to be based more in telling people what they want to hear. And in poker, that just doesn't seem to be the case, at least among high level players. We're all very aware that we're making mistakes every single day we play, and we want to be around people who are going to call us out. Hopefully, not in a toxic way. That has its own, issue. But I think we experience a lot more criticism than maybe other people in different job markets.
So recently I had a situation, I'm not gonna call the names. I was trying to help one of friends, and I told him like what exactly he's doing wrong from my point of view,
Mhm.
uh, and I felt he'd been insulted of me exactly explaining what I think, because maybe I did it in a bit rude way, uh, but what makes us like the best, he was insulted for 10 minutes. After that everything was fine,
Yep.
so
Yep.
some
That's
people will
nice.
take it too personally and will keep it for like weeks, and I think it's very important to kind of, even if the person who is trying to help you, he's wrong, but you can make your own analytics and take criticism, and just just take that he's wrong, and you have your own ideas about such situations. So yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I think one of the things that, because we've analyzed hands for so many years and been rather direct, and we don't really beat around the bush with all that corporate speak, so to speak, sometimes poker players, myself included, can be too direct with people who don't play poker in our analysis or critique of a situation, and they're used to a more massaged way of saying something.
Hmm.
So there is kind of that. That disentanglement that a poker player has to do when they are entering a sphere that has nothing to do with poker.
To be honest, I really love ecosystem we have in like high stakes poker about everything. You know, just like uh, exactly about the topic that you mentioned, being like uh, honest, even if it's like very in a rude way. That we can take all these like problems and we can take all these judgments and be okay with that and still be a friends. Also, want to mention that on high stakes, I don't see like it's so little chance that you will be scammed, but by some of the other players, you know, in a way related with money or life things. What I hear from the what's happening on like mid stakes or just in other uh, like I don't know other businesses, it's just insane what's happening there. We have like very honest ecosystem.
Yeah, I would agree. So this is a question from the GTOLAB Discord channel, which is, what do you see as some of the biggest differences between the 109 to 530 buy-ins online as compared to the 2K to 10K buy-ins?
So difference between 109 and 500 and 2K and 10K. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's coming from a reg who plays mostly maxed at 500, the occasional 2K, but he's curious about what it takes to kind of make that leap. What's the biggest difference in those games?
So first of all, a lot of high stakes players they actually have the lowest buy-in is 500. Usually there is no space for them to add more tournaments, and so this is where like mid low stakes players can meet those high stakes players. So I think there is quite big difference between 109 and 500 related to deep stages of the tournament. So obviously when you play like large field, some I don't know big tournament on GG like 525 KO for 1 million prize pool. Uh, there you definitely will still have a lot of different players like mid stakes, low stakes, bad players, like VIPs, maybe sit outs, I don't know. And but when it comes to the deep stage, it's high chance that you will have very strong players, and it will be there is where all the money being distributed. You have kind of tough fields. If we talk about 109, it's mostly going to be same players from the beginning till the end, and you will never meet like the best players in the world. um, Talking about like difference between 2K and 10K, to be honest, I think there is no difference online. Is
How about
the
between 2K and 100, 109 versus a 2K? What if someone is doing pretty well in the 109s? What are some of the things you think they might need to work on to get to the level where they can be playing the 2Ks?
I think the most important part, they should be confident that they have enough knowledge to be able to compete with the best players, and also they need to understand where EV actually comes from. So mostly, if we talk about some players that want to succeed as poker players and they want to be judged as like best players in the world, it's not about the money, right? So it doesn't matter are they winning players or not, but maybe uh, like winnings in general, it's like it's the main factor of being judged as the best player in the world at this point, because
Mhm.
normally you don't have enough hands, you can't really tell who is like more skilled. You can have better win rate but you losing, so maybe it's like his ICM knowledge is way better, but you never know. And the winnings is the main part of last judgment. And I think if you are mistake player and you want to compete at the highest level, first of all you need to expect that you will make crazy mistakes just because you will be uncomfortable playing those tournaments at the beginning, and you should use it as a studying process. It's normal. When I just jumped like 25Ks and stuff, I was making like huge mistakes just because I had lack of knowledge for some certain spots. Let's imagine while you're playing like 109 tournament online, usually the field is at least 300 players, and there's min cash maybe two buy-ins, and there is no that high ICM. When you play like 25Ks online, it's sometimes three players get paid or four players get paid, and this is uh, this is very important part of the tournaments when you get like minimum, I don't know, three binds min cash. And if you make a mistake there, it's so painful because it's a lot of
Mhm.
money comparing to buying. uh, yeah, so this is the main difference, like bubble spots, icmfts, even early stage of the tournament, you need to understand how you can get ev from like top players in the world playing 200 bbs deep, if some of them are cash game players as well that will crush you. uh, at the beginning you will struggle no matter what, and
So
you
you
need to be
mentioned
ready for that.
ICM there. Yeah, and at the beginning, you talked about you need to learn where the EV actually is. Certainly, ICM is, where the EV is. Where else is the EV? Where is somebody maybe not putting enough focus in if they're playing big field 109s aside from bubble and final tables?
I think a lot of ev comes from people who are playing those tournaments. They have no idea who you are, and you might have a lot of information on them. It's just you're like a dark horse, you're just
Hmm.
coming to those fields, and people don't know what to expect from you, and you can kind of play with your image. You can some of your decision might be shocking to your opponents, and this is where ev might come from. It's kind of tough. Let's say if we talk about the tournaments where no one makes huge mistakes, uh, in general this is just only place where you practice, probably. You're not thinking about ev. And when it comes to the spots where there is mix of such players like bet players and top level players, this is where everything that you practice you're gonna use for gaining max ev.
So you're at a stage of your career now where you've achieved a lot. You've got a $15 million lead in the Latvia all-time money list, 17 mil, and the next guy's at 2 point something mil. But no, I mean, you are a successful player online, live. You have what I imagine is a pretty successful backing and coaching operation, and you're 32 now. I'm curious how you think about success as it pertains to poker, success as it pertains to life, and how you think about balancing your time and energy, between poker and outside life. What's important to you, and if that's evolved at all in the past couple of years.
um, I think in general the most important parts of your life is like just to be. I still think that way, but maybe I'm changing the way I feel during the how many years I've been on this planet. So right now I think you just need to be happy, no matter what. So it's just the if you think of the balance too much, it seems like you're doing something wrong. So balance should be super. It should be natural. uh I just heard somewhere, this like the guy was just explaining, if you think of balancing the real life and the amount of hours you're spending on a work, fuck the balance, life is more important. Stop working, fuck the balance, and I just realized recently, it's like only 2 years ago, that I was doing a lot of things to just gain ev, to earn money, to have kind of protected life, to never get in a bankruptcy, to have like very stable income like every year or something like that. But now I just understand that, um, just important to be happy, then everyone around you will be happy, you will make them happy, and this is the most important part for sure for me.
Yeah. You touched on something that I think is this interesting paradox with happiness, where um, one of the newer branches of psychology is called positive psychology, which is essentially the psychology around happiness. And one of the common findings is that if you try to be happy, you won't be happy. Like you mentioned, essentially with balance, that if you are trying to inject balance in, that might not really work, that it kind of has to be natural. But for some people, it doesn't come naturally. And there's this weird crossroads where, yeah, if you try to fit something, if you try to push the puzzle piece in where it doesn't belong, you're just going to get more frustrated. And, like solve for happiness doesn't exactly work. It's not this straightforward scientific problem, at least based on our current understanding. But at the same time, some people are so out of balance and it does not naturally happen for them. They're just workaholics, or, whatever their addiction is. Hopefully, work and exercise are two of the healthier addictions, but you can get a lot worse out of balance problems. Um, yeah, I don't know if there's a question there. I just think it's a really tricky thing trying to find
It's super
happiness when you're
open
not happy.
topic, like it's super individual, there is no guide for everyone. Some people actually might require help to find a balance, and they should work on that, but majority of the people should probably gain it naturally, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. I might be on the one extreme here where I do a little bit of a lot of things, and I feel that the balance has come naturally for me. But I kind of realized a long time ago I will never fully commit myself to something because I need the novelty of having very different experiences day to day. And I just like I'm really enjoying this podcast, for example, and there's basically no chance I'll be doing it in 4 years. It just strikes me as the kind of thing that will run its course at a certain point. And once I'm not enjoying the conversations anymore because there's not enough novelty, it will naturally be time to move on.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, let's say I just mentioned happiness, but as well, for me, part of happiness is achieving goals. And so far, I had like last year pretty important goals that I will be achieving this year. Not gonna tell, but there is something important for me.
Is it beating me at tennis?
Yeah, that's the reason why I didn't mention that. No.
Stop hitting drop shots.
Yeah, no, it's more like family stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think I kind of achieved very important goals in the poker, but I think there will be new room for new goals soon. So yeah, I think reaching opportunity playing like super high stakes tournaments, it's already pretty nice thing that we achieved. But hopefully there will be something even better.
10 years from now, what do you think Alekjs of the future might look back at Alekjs of today and say, you were not spending enough time doing this. You were spending too much time and energy on this.
Health. Health is probably what I'm ignoring so far, but I'm at the beginning. I'm at the beginning of this journey of fixing some, let's say, body conditions, if we can call that. Yeah, so I'm trying to add more sports in my life. I was a bit lazy on that aspect because I was too busy working on improving in poker, on like creating my uh, coaching business and stuff.
Do you think, this is something I feel like there are mixed answers about how important physical health is as it pertains to playing a grueling high stakes schedule. Do you think that the community is overrating this or underrating it? What are your feelings around better physical health and how that relates to playing a long high stakes live schedule?
I would say it depends what you're trying to achieve. So if you really care only about having the better results, it's probably not that important as most people are thinking of that. Like
Mhm.
just being super healthy and stuff. But I mean, there is still benefits. You can't just ignore you by being like fully focused on a game for like 10 hours, or being a bit sleepy last 2 hours of your game. It's like huge difference. Also, your emotionally you will be way stronger if you're healthy. let's say look at the Steven Chidwick. Even if he loses like 1 million EV pot, he's just like, I don't care. It's included in our work. It's fine. He's like super strong. I think he's like ace in emotional aspect of the poker players.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think having just being too focused on this aspect is too much. But at the same time, if you just want to be enjoying the game, it's way better to be like in a better health conditions for sure. You will just enjoy every moment of your life way better.
Fair. Let's see.
What
I
it is
think.
for you, is it like uh what is more important, enjoying the game or ev? What do you think?
Oh, enjoying. I mean, the way that I think about everything through kind of a somewhat holistic lens, where I'm saying, is this the best way to be spending my time? And if the answer is no, then I won't do it. The EV
Yeah,
is
exactly. While I was asking, I was like, it's kind of should be a rhetorical question because, yeah, it's so obvious. But I can imagine some people don't understand this as well.
yeah. I mean, I think that that's the kind of calculation a lot of people are making is, am I going to be fully focused on a goal? And when you are, you're forgetting that the goal is only one portion of your life and you make all these sacrifices. And then it's very difficult to get good at anything or focus on anything if you're thinking about everything at once. So if you are every moment that you're studying a spot in the solver, if you're constantly questioning, is this the best way to spend my time? You're never going to actually study the solver. You're always going to find something else you should do. I should do push ups. I should spend time with my family. I should call my mom, whatever it is. So there's that difficult balance between trying to achieve your goals and keeping a holistic lens on your life and not getting too consumed by your goals.
Yeah, right. And actually, I'm not sure what is. I mean, it's, both things are way more important. But what I rate higher, like physical health or mental health, it's probably comes together, right?
Yeah, they coalesce at a certain point. There's this kind of bleed over where I think if a person's, let's say, 120 pounds overweight, it's difficult for that not to bleed into their mental health. It's not to say that if you're in good physical health, you have to be in good mental health. Certainly not. But I
Yeah, for
think,
sure.
yeah, yeah, there's some carryover. Another question from the GTOLAB Discord was about shame as it pertains to showing down a bluff. I don't get the feeling that you feel much or any shame when you show down a bluff today, but I'm wondering if that was a process, especially when you started playing live. Was there any time where that had a decent effect on you? And if so, how do you acclimate to that? How did you get over feeling embarrassed or shameful about showing bluffs live? Getting caught bluffing, I should say.
Um, I feel just like very basic part of the game, and you shouldn't feel any shame. Sometimes, I mean, I know, like by showing a bluff, and if you get catched, there is like no emotional problem for many players. But there is a problem when someone is like showing give up. With a combo that, let's say, high frequency bluffs, they feel shame of that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when the other guy had a hand that would fold.
Yeah, exactly. It's like ace high auto fold or something like that,
Yep, yep.
or king high auto call.
Got it.
No, that was actually a little needle for your recent hand.
What did I have? I don't remember.
Versus Kulev, pretty wild.
Oh, king high call. Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. That was one I told you I've been on a roll, like 6%. It just keeps whatever I go off chart seems to work, and eventually I'm going to get crushed on them, but they all make sense to me and whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I was thinking like, w- what he will feel if he gives up 10-8 and you have king 6, because he's expecting you to fold this hand, obviously.
sure, I don't think he's putting me on king highs there, but agreed that he's feels whatever he thinks I have a three and he doesn't want to give up with 10-8. So you and I, we talked in London at Triton. We were taking a cab over to the tournament, and we were chatting about the pieces that we take of ourselves versus sales. I'm very nitty, and I think that I don't need to have a very large piece of myself to care a lot about a tournament. And it seems like your decision making has evolved and kind of gone in a couple different directions regarding that. I'd be curious how you think about how much of yourself to take in various tournaments. I know that some people take essentially the same amount in every tournament. So if they were a person who takes 20K of action, they take 20K of their 25K and 20K of their 200K. That hasn't been the impression I've gotten from you, but I'd be curious how you go about that process.
So normally I'm still studying what's better conditions for me, how I feel while I'm playing. I'm still not sure. It's very open topic for me, and I think I will require some time to figure out how much I want to sell, how much I want to keep for myself. But usually it's all dependent on availability of what liquidity I have at the moment, how much money I need for my business. Yeah, I think you really need a bit more gamble. You take more risks, and I think it's totally fine. It's just what you want. But definitely, what I realized, it's very important not to have too much of action if it will change, if it will be too emotional for you to break, like, let's say, every tournament. If you go
Mhm.
for the series and you lose 1 million and you're just like, I mean, how I gonna win this money back by now having only like 10k piece in every tournament? It's kind of hard. So you need to be prepared for this if you are gambling. Otherwise, better not to take such big risks and always keep like average buy-in range for yourself. So even if it's like 250k, just have like 10%. If it's 25k, just have full action. That's totally fine. But also, I think ROI is very important when you deciding how much action you want to help on yourself as well. So if it's way higher ROI, definitely it makes sense to take more risks. The smaller field is, the more risk you can take as well, because the variance is a bit lower.
And what are your thoughts around swapping? One, the ethics of swapping. Two, if you do any swaps. And three, if you do swaps, is it purely through an equity lens, or do you ever do friendly swaps? Hey, this student could use a boost here. I'm happy to swap a couple with him, even though I think I have 5 ROI more than him. What are your thoughts around that?
So first of all, I mentioned before that in poker industry we have very good ecology. Like, I think ethical part of swapping shouldn't be discussed in a, like, it's something wrong. I don't think there is. Let's say we talk only about high stakes, when there is like, we know every person that plays there, and we're 100% sure there will be no deviations based on how much action you have of some other guy. So you will not fold, because as well, if you're gonna start folding, your swapping person will punish you. And usually I don't swap too much. I have little part of my action that I'm swapping, just because I'm scared to be judged about ethical part. But yeah, I
Sure.
I think I shouldn't be. Uh, I shouldn't be scared of that. So yeah, I probably I should swap more. But I kind of feel confident what I'm doing right now, and I can live with that. Second part, having like swaps with the people who you think are a little bit worse than you. I think it's totally fine if you're like friends or something like that. And I'm not. I can live with that by giving away a little EV, like $500 or something like that. That's fine. If I wouldn't be okay with that, I would never had such swaps in my life.
Hmm.
So you need to know yourself. You need to know you will feel bad or not by doing this. And I think
Makes
it's
sense.
totally fine. Some people are uh, there is actually a lot of ego involved in high stakes. So there is like group of people that think other group sucks. There is other group of people that think they suck, and everyone trying to be in some kind of groups, and they swapping with each other based on what they think they're doing correctly and stuff. What is important for them? Because let's say there might be like two insanely good players. One is terrible early in the tournament and he plays amazing in ICM, and other
Mhm.
player is completely opposite. And what you would choose, who knows? And maybe it's good to have both of them in your team, you know.
That's been very interesting for me in researching the book. You know that you're one of the players that I've asked the poll question to, which is essentially I ask everyone for their top 7 players. And yes, you see very clear that a lot of the people who seem to study together, who are close together, have a very strong impression that their group is the best. And I'm seeing that in the multiple groups. But it is interesting what you said about maybe having a foot in a bunch of different worlds and kind of understanding, hey, these guys who really do play well deep stacked and who seem to emphasize the importance of playing 150 BBs deep. It's tough to say how much EV there is or isn't in that compared to playing final 2 tables particularly well. I think most people agree that final table is hugely important, but it's tricky to kind of measure these things exactly.
Yeah, it depends on the tournament. You know, some tournaments you will have so much EV by playing from start because every like VIP recreational player will be there. And some tournaments you just know you can max play track because you have edge over other regulars and there is not many VIPs in a field. You know, we can make some ACMR podcast. This is pretzels, good ones.
All right, so the hand we have here is about half the field remaining in the recent Triton in Montenegro. This is the 30K. We've got a nice little battle, blind versus blind, between you and Stevie. So he opens up with a limp here, 9-5 suited. He's playing deep. He's got 92 bigs. Your start has not been as fortunate. We've got just under 14 bigs here, 7-2 off. Let's talk about ranges when you're facing a limp here with about 14 bigs. What does range construction look like for you?
I definitely can play multiple sizes of isolation. I can have checking back range and no folding, obviously. Yeah, so this hand category probably drops into big size of isolation and check back. Um, yeah, or can use just one size average, but normally in this tech dep I will construct maybe like 2.5 big blinds and 4.5 big blinds isolation range.
What are some of the hands that you would almost never put in a raise here? What are some of the hands that kind of just look like very clear checks?
That would be mid part of my range mostly, just like suited mid cards. If I want to play them somehow, I probably just jamming because it's just like burning too much equity by isolating them and folding versus limp free bet.
And how about your ISO range for value versus just jamming for value? Where do you see the line being drawn here versus someone, that you really respect like Stevie? And how might that change if you were playing, let's say, like we talked about, a 3,500 WPT at Hard Rock against an unknown?
Um, it depends what this unknown gonna wear, how his shoes look like, does he has cover for his phone and so on. But yeah, against Steven Chidwick it's probably gonna be close to GTO range. I'll be isolating small size my suited combos and pocket pairs, strong ones, and with big size mostly gonna go for uh like offsuit, strong holdings, and some mid pocket pairs. Yeah, and I will have some isolations for value that I'm folding to limp shove as well, like kind of semi strong offsuit Broadway hands.
Mm-hmm. What are
That's
we
kind
like?
of my
King nine or
yeah
Jack 10?
that type of hands like king nine, like queen 10 type of hands.
And what's the best pocket pair you see yourself just about always jamming as opposed to raise calling?
You mean what I just jamming over the limp?
Yeah,
It's probably gonna be like fives.
got it. Nice. So you do decide to jack it up with the 7-2-0.
Yeah,
Stevie's
seems
decision.
so. In this spot, as I said, you can construct strategy of one size of ISO or multiple sizes. Depends how you prefer. So seems like during that moment, I decided to have only one size of isolation.
Okay. And Stevie with the 9-5 suited. Easy decision to call. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. No brainer call. It's like super standard.
How close? What about 9-4 suited, 9-3 suited?
Um, let's call against this size is probably in ICM ranges. Not the, I mean, 9-4 is still a call. 9-3 probably close, maybe fold.
Gotcha. And if you don't respect the big blind to find enough ISOs, are you ever folding as strong as, say, 9-6 suited against someone you don't really respect in Stevie's spot?
Uh, let's say I'm not sure I even constructing limping range against someone who is not isolating enough.
Nice.
I mean, I probably can construct only limp folding range, but this is another story.
No, I like that a lot. I think a lot of people, they, for the sake of balance, don't even consider that aspect. But the fact that you're willing to have a range that is purely exploitative, I think I'm right there with you against some opponents.
Like in 2024, it's hard to imagine some regular not isolating enough to construct limping range.
Sure.
I
So
love
right
this board.
away, yeah, yeah, this is 7-2 doesn't find too much more equity than this for still being 7 high. And Stevie checks it over to you. And question is, do you want to C bet or check? And on the surface, it looks like a pretty darn good hand to C bet. Tell us why you opted to check. What are your thoughts here?
I think it's pretty clear. Check backhand. It's kind of definitely if I want to see bet this hand, I'm stacking off, but it's not achieving much, and I'm just taking like let's say having maybe seven deuce with deuce of spade. It makes way more sense for me to see bet. Having seven of spade is just just way of a it's like not good enough hand and not weak enough hand to bet here. I don't want to just see bet and make a break even call with my hand, in such spot.
Hmm.
So I think it's pretty standard check back, and I would play most of the time like that.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, you said it's not achieving much, where I think a lot of people's first instinct is, wait, everything that's 8 high or better, all the way up until, 8 high to king high without a spade is going to fold. But why is that not a big achievement to you at this point?
I mean, it's not just, it's still a big achievement, but a lot of hands that my opponent is check folding right now, they have such a low equity of catching something on a turn, and I can easily bluff my hand with delay and get the same result uh, for ability to see more cards. Maybe I don't even need to start bluffing because I might hit a straight. I can have a flush on a turn. You should not forget about this as well. That I'm not just holding pure low equity hand. It's just high equity hand against, as you see, against 9-5. I'm a leader in such situations.
Yeah. Excellent. Not necessarily the turn you're looking for.
Yeah, still fine.
Yeah.
10 is actually a good card for his range. That's probably he should start betting a lot. I'm not isolating a lot of 10x that, and after I'm just checking back them. It's gonna be only like suited combos that 25% of the time hit a flush on a flop.
Hmm.
And for Steven, he will have tons of offsuit 10x and suited 10x just limping pre and calling.
So Stevie goes for a little value here with the 9-5. What are your thoughts in his shoes?
Um, I think it's pretty standard bet. He should be using mostly small size, and yeah. I don't like not small size, but he don't have to go big to make SPR under one on a river. We are playing pretty shallow stack depth. And
How do you make sense of that? How do you find this to be a linear spot as opposed to polar? What's informing that?
in general, this is not a dry texture, and a lot of my hands they're not connected with this board, and the hands that are connected with this board just has tons of equity, or it's just like pure nuts.
Is there a turn that would be more polar? Is there any polarized turn for Stevie?
Nah, not really. I mean, his size is not far away from polar size. To be honest, it's like somewhere in the middle. So he's just betting like medium size.
Hmm.
That makes sense to go fin for value, and so he's betting like one third, having SPR. What if I call it's 0.7, something like that?
Yep. Yeah, he bet 21 to 70. Um, Talking about your range here, any hands that jump out to you as clear raises, maybe starting with value?
I actually was considering raising my hand here. It also
Mhm.
makes sense because a lot of his offsuit holdings that has one spade, and he started betting on a flop. It's mostly going to be higher spade combos. Like
Mm.
let's imagine Jack nine with nine of spade, Jack nine of Jack of spade. So it makes sense to just deny equity of those hands and deny cooler value for myself. There are going to be some values that make sense to jam as well. Let's say king 10, no spades as well. Why not? You can get value from worse hands, and you deny equity of some decent equity, let's say.
Gotcha.
So my hand, I think it's pretty interesting decision to jam the turn as well.
What do you think about Stevie's spot here in terms of what are you thinking with this five? Is it good enough to go for value, checking?
I would say king is not really good card for his range, so his strategy should be quite more polar. So I think he should consider between jamming and checking, and maybe sometimes constructing block of like one big blind bet just to attack my random nine highs by having eight high combos. I don't know.
Hmm. Do you have a lot of ace high in this spot?
Not a lot. So I have some, but not a lot of them,
Okay.
obviously.
Stevie does go for that block, 10%.
Yeah. So at this point, I think I have one of the best combos to bluff. I'm unblocking his bluffs. Not all of them, but let's say his 8 9, Jack 8, Jack 9, type of holdings that he might go for block. 8 7 with eight of spade that I mentioned before. It
Hmm.
can be like I can just try to bluff off his bluffs, and this is not going to be enough. Obviously, I need to expect him sometimes to fold five as well. So I think he's holding pretty big bad combo for calling as well. That is not terrible, but it's blocks some of my bluffs because my bluff's going to be around maybe nine deuce off as well, eight deuce off, seven deuce off. So when he's calling, he's probably would prefer to block some of my straights like 5 6, maybe 5 7, rather than just blocking bluffs. So yeah, I think 9 5. It's supposed to fold sometimes on a river. Not sure how frequently.
Backing up to your jam, what do you think? Where would you draw the line for value as far as jamming in your spot? What do we have aside from maybe a slow played flush? And what do you see as the bottom?
Um, Bottom probably 10x that I'm jamming that I decided just to call. Let's say ace 10 off with ace of spade. That can be maybe 10 deuce. I can go for no problem. I'm just calling. Yeah, it's gonna be like jacks with jack of spade that I could check on a flop as well. Queens plus that
How
type of.
important is a spade? Like if you had 10-2-0 with the two of spades, is that a better value shove than say Queen
It's
10
it's
oh
a
no
little
spade.
it's a little bit better, but not a huge difference, obviously,
Gotcha.
because he don't have that many suited deuce X. It's gonna be like five combos or
Sure.
something,
Yeah.
four
Queen 2,
maybe.
Jack 2. Gotcha.
Yeah, but obviously it's a little bit better. But I don't think I would jam here 10 deuce, to be honest.
Got it. So you do opt to shove, and Stevie goes into the tank for a while. I mean, you leave one chip behind, so we're not all in. But my question here, well, we've got it edited to where he calls, but this went on for, I believe, one time
I think
bank.
he went for no time bank call.
He
It
did
was
go
no
no
time
time
bank.
banks? Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it
yeah,
was,
I
yeah, he
remember
went
such a call.
29 seconds call. Nice action shot, chip flying. But my question here, and this certainly isn't the highest stake situation, so you might not be feeling much pressure at all. Half the field left in the 30K. But in general, when you have no more decisions left to make as you are here, so there's really not any strategy thoughts. What are some of the thoughts going through your mind? Are you doing any kind of relaxation? Are you trying to steady anything? Are you trying to think about things other than poker? What tends to go through your mind when someone does take a long tank and you have no more strategic decisions to make?
I think it's very related to your mood. Sometimes I'm just like, I already made all my decisions. I did all my thought process before making a move, and I don't care what's gonna happen. I know
Hmm.
what combos I was trying to attack. I know what's my value. Let's say I calculated my decision in advance, so why I should be nervous at this point? But sometimes there are spots where you are not sure about your play. Then it comes to maybe sometimes your BPM goes, or I mean, heart rate goes up. Yeah, but not. I can't tell you right now. So it's really depends what I was doing this morning, or did maybe I
Sure.
had few espresso recently or not. It's when people are trying to make notes on such spots, it's kind of. I think it's very inaccurate.
Makes sense. Stevie does call. You see the 9-5. And, Stevie's someone you've played a lot of hands with, surely. But if this is a player that you have no history with, does this start the cat and mouse game of, hey, this guy made a call where I think you might see a lot of folds and now we're off to the races? Or is it
I remember during this hand I was a little bit upset because I was expecting to see a fold from such holding, and yeah, I mean I can make assumptions that now I will bluff a bit less against Steven Chidwick, but I think he knows that I'm thinking about such things. So yeah, I need to be careful, and if he will think that I will bluff less now, it's probably where he can start punishing by folding. uh, am I expecting this will happen? Yes.
makes
So
sense?
I will not deviate against strong players a lot. If he will start calling all his bad bluff catchers, I will just get more EV with my value, and it's fair.
Excellent. And our other hand for today is a much more high stakes hand, but also blind versus blind. This is also from Triton, Montenegro, and you got third in the main event. And this was with four left in the main event. So let me tee that up. All right. So four handed, 200, 400K, a lot of ICM in. We just saw, let me back that up here, but Mikolai is going to fold off of 16.8. And then Deanne has 7.4,
Mm-hmm.
and you're working with 11.6 and some massive shades in the small blind. We got to talk about, how did we not, in the exploitative section, talk about some of your snazzy dress? You've got some of the snazziest wardrobe in the high rollers. What's going on with the snazzy exploits?
Um, I'm not sure. It's also mood dependent decisions what to wear today. Some of the things I feel they're super unlucky that I was wearing, and I need to torch them. But yeah, some things it's also I always think about lucky stuff. I think I'm what's the word for this when you believe in such things.
Superstition.
Yeah, I'm not superstitious guy, but when it comes about like what to dress at the poker table, I am.
So the gold velour jumpsuit, lucky or unlucky?
A lucky one. Very good luck.
The 80s neon pink and blue and purple jumpsuit. Lucky or unlucky?
Torture, torture.
Torture? Oh no, I
Yes,
haven't seen it in a while.
I,
Yeah.
I think Jungle Man killed this tracksuit.
Yeah, that's one of those ones where if you see somebody else wearing, I saw somebody wearing that yesterday at World Series, and I thought of you. You were the first guy, you were the OG, but then Jungle Man showed up at Triton wearing the exact same jumpsuit as you, and I was like, oh, I can't wait till they're in line next to each other. This is great.
There was one other guy at the Triton wearing this tracksuit. That was Philip Stenheimer.
Oh, okay, I didn't know he had that. Yeah, that's
I
funny. I
think he
can't
actually
picture that.
torched that after Jungle Man wore it.
Jungle ruins wardrobe for you. You're just like, if Jungle ever shows up in whatever I'm wearing, it's done.
Yeah,
All right.
I mean, it's actually a very important part for FTs. Nothing you need to dress the way nothing will disturb you. So at this final table, I felt I need to try to avoid light coming from up, and yeah. I felt uncomfortable having too much light. I think during this Montenegro there was more light than usually.
Got it. Makes sense. So you go for raise with the Jack 3-0 into Phil. He's the short stack with 6 million. Looks like you're in second place behind Mikolai, who's got a pretty healthy chip lead. Talk a little bit about range construction here in the small blind. Looks like you opt for the 2.5x. I don't know if you're just playing one size.
Yeah, I'm playing one size here.
Mhm.
It's we play pretty shallow stack sizes, so
So this is a spot where no doubt your range is playing a fair number of jams in addition to raise. Where do you see your value line between raise versus jam? What's the pocket pair where you're thinking I'm probably going to go for just jam?
like six or seven, sevens, I believe, maybe. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean,
And how about
there's usually like category of like pocket pair that you leave for a raise in between. So it might be, I don't know, for having better post flop, um how to say, coverage. You
yeah, yeah. There's the sneaky spots where fives is a raise, but sevens
Yeah,
is a
and
jam, and yeah,
sevens is a
yeah,
jam just because you understand what you're getting fold from, and as well,
sure,
yeah.
yeah. So how about offsuit ace and suited ace? Where you think you're drawing the line there?
I would probably induce ace queen off plus, and we'll just shove all the other offsuit aces in this spot. Maybe would consider raising ace jack off based on my image. Um, yeah, and with suited combos, I would go ace eight suited plus, I believe,
Hmm. Do you think
and
that's
some
an
suited
area?
broadways mandatory.
Makes sense. Do you think that's an area where, when you're playing high stakes regs, you need to cover your value raise with more combos than against lesser regs?
Yeah, for sure. I think in general, I mean, it's all depends what was your image during the last few months.
Sure.
uh, I I'm not sure if he'll really aware about my image, but it seems like he's now way more interested in studying no limit hold'em tournaments. So I kind of maybe a bit aware of that.
Hmm. Makes sense. So Phil has a pretty natural call, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can consider jamming sometimes if you think your opponent overdoing raising with bluffs.
Sure.
But
Makes
yeah,
sense.
looks natural call.
And not too dissimilar from the last flop, flush draw as opposed to mono, but we got a three low cards, and you start this one with a little bet.
Yeah, I think I don't have many like super strong holdings here, like sets or straights or I mean, I might have maybe no, probably I don't have straights in this spot. So yeah, I just have a lot of very weak one pair holdings, but he's not connected with this board really well as well, even though he has way more super strong holdings, and I have cheap lead. So I'm just betting a lot of combos, one big blind here.
Sure. So if I understand correct, you've got a lot of garbage that just achieves so much if you just put out one big blind and get the occasional fold, and then a lot of your value is kind of on the lower end of value. It's a big ace high and ace queen of hearts, let's say. How about some of the value that would seem to achieve a lot more with a big bet, a vulnerable hand like tens, for example? Do you think that you would have a second size for a hand like that, or you're
No,
going to put it all, keep it
no,
all in one big?
I would play all small size as well. He will be forced to continue low equity hands because he has way more connectivity with this board for his super strong holdings.
Hmm.
Or he's completely not connected with this board. So that's why I'm forcing him to play wider range while I have opportunity to attack him by ICM.
Okay. Now, if this is an opponent you don't have much respect for, you think they overfold pre a lot, they don't find enough of the creative backdoor type bluffs when you bet one big blind, might you deviate against them and play something like two, 2.5 big blinds with a hand like
Uh,
tens?
Maybe, but I don't see much point. I think such person probably will take care of protection on that board and probably will jam weaker holdings that are connected with this board. Let's say he's holding, I don't know, queen four of diamonds. He might just jam on this flop.
Sure. Okay. Phil calls with not the most obvious call. What are your thoughts there?
Um, I was kind of in the hand. I was expecting such continuations because I just bet one big blind, and um, even if he has very far backdoor equity for the straight draw, it's still pretty cheap price. And let's say I'm pretty sure he's folding 9-8, but 9-7 maybe he's sometimes continuing. Um, yeah, so no,
Yeah,
no,
it feels like once you see this hand call, like 9-8, no spade is literally the only hand that I think could fold. I mean, this seems to be
maybe 10
this
8,
type of
10-8 as well.
yeah, I mean, 10-8 does start to dominate some bluffs, but yeah,
I still think his combo should be folded, but I'm not shocked to see a call.
sure. Five of spades. What do we make of your spot now before you go for the check?
So in general, this is the run out where after he continues on a flop, he has not way more flushes, but he has way more straights. Even though I have some ace x straights, but he has six x straights, way more than me. Um, Also, I bet range on that flop, and he continuing not a range. Maybe maybe a range based on his holding, but yeah, he shouldn't be. So he's pretty connected, and I think I should be check heavy on that run out.
Excellent. Personal question. Feel free to skip. We're covering the mouth. Phil Ivey effect, final table effect, stream table effect. What's going on here?
I'm testing different things right now, and I kind of feel comfortable by having my hand next to my mouth while I'm thinking, and just to not touch my face after I'm touching the chips. Uh, yeah, that's the only reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always felt comfortable for years. I do have the hand touching the mouth, but a lot of pictures of me like that. That's kind
Yeah,
of my deep in
try
concentration.
try hoodie.
Yeah, yeah, I could slide the hood over. That seems a little more
Would be
sanitary.
weird if you just took a tissue and just like
In fairness, it is this part of the finger that goes over my mouth, whereas you touch the chips with your fingertips. But yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it
Of
looks
course.
pretty unsanitary.
I don't think I'm exposing anything by not having hoodie here, so I'm not
Got
really
it. The
trying to
hoodie
flex.
scarf has been very popular among the Europeans. That's we've got
I
the
mean,
Mario
just in
Montserrat.
case, just in
We
case.
sure, sure, can't hurt, especially when you're on stream.
Yeah,
Ivy goes for the check back. What do you think? This, like you mentioned, might not be a holding you'd have at this point, but if you did, what are your thoughts on bet versus check with this combo?
it's kind of he's not blocking that many of my auto faults, so I think I like to see a bet here. But
Mhm.
it makes sense for him to also check back a lot of super strong hands on that board that has 100% equity. So that's why sometimes pure bluffs he should be checking back with idea to bluff on the river.
Should he be worried? Let's say he's got a little bit of equity. Let's say he's sitting with the 10-7 with a spade. Um, should he be worried about you check raising him, or is this a spot where getting blown off his equity is not much of a concern because you're not playing much check raise?
Yeah, I think not really. I think he should be not super aware that he can face a check jam here.
Got it.
I'm even not sure what I'm check jamming. Probably,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure.
I think that concept of burning your equity on the turn gets misapplied very often, where sometimes people are overly concerned in spots where there just won't be much check raise, if any, versus spots where they have put, everyone's got those moments where they're like, why did I bet the turn? Now this guy jammed and I have to fold all this equity.
Hmm. Yeah, and even talking about 9-7, it doesn't has a lot of equity, so he shouldn't be that
Okay.
scared.
Yeah. River four, you go for check. Certainly, we have this clip sped up, so there was some thought there. But is there any decision for you with a block, or is this just looking like check?
No, I think it's pretty natural check. He has some. I has some ace highs that he can start trying to bluff. Not ace highs, sorry, king high combos that he wants to start trying to bluff off. I have some pocket pairs. I don't see much value I can get here with exactly my combo. Maybe if I have high pocket pairs, it makes sense to construct blocking. But I just open room for him to get more value with his stronger holdings. I think it's check. A lot of checking should be here as well.
Makes sense. And at this point, Phil certainly has to bluff. You don't call the 9-7, face two checks to give up here. He goes for 1 million, very small size, 1 into 3.2. One of these sizes you don't see too often for chips. Even when they do appear, I think you don't see people pull the trigger. Of course, the penalty being for such a small upside betting value, 1/3, you are reopening the action. But at final tables, does seem these emerge a little bit more. What do you think about his choice of size?
I think he should only use bigger sizes because I mean he's not going thin for value and he wants to choose the size where my pocket pairs are indifferent. Uh,
Let's talk about not going thin for value. Why does Phil not want to bet, let's say, King Five of Hearts?
um, hmm, having king. Yeah, I mean probably he can start betting king five, but it's as well ICM spot where he should in general have more polar strategy in this spot because he gives opportunity to reopen action, and playing ICM post flop, you definitely should be more aware how thin you can go for value. So in chips, it makes sense to even put king five to big size. But in ICM, I'm not sure. Maybe it makes sense to start using like small size with your fin value bets here, but seems like it's not very good idea.
Got it. So let's flip it over to your decision. Facing such a small bet, if it's not a size you're using, it's certainly going to take you off chart a little bit, off course in terms of your thought process, trying to make sense of why he's doing this, right? What are you thinking at this time?
Actually, during the handout, I was exactly thinking what you said. What combo he wants to bet like small size. I was like, it's probably like some five that he wants to get value from like my deuce or free. But am I expecting him to bet really quick 5x with no time bank?
Hmm.
It's low chance and it's kind of good price. So I think this is one of the spots is easy to over bluff because you should. It's very hard to go very thin for value. He's not defending here a lot of offsuit hands in this spot. So those 5x, it's mostly like 10-5 suited, 5-9 suited, 5-7 suited plus type of hands. Yeah.
Do you think he's defending any of his ace X first year open there? He's got 15 to start the hand. You go 2.5 from the small blind.
I think in ICM he probably wants to fast play them most of the ace-x. Maybe some of the ace-x he sometimes press call, but not many of them.
Gotcha. What do you think are the
Only
most
suited.
likely? Only
Like
suited.
suited, suited maybe ace five suited, ace ace four to ace seven suited, something like that.
So I think that's unintuitive for a lot of people who haven't played too many final tables. Why would you defend these higher equity ace 4 to ace 7 suited and jam, say, the ace 2 0 or ace 4 0?
Just because like suited combos play post flop way better, and if you concerned of having some ace x in your calling range, it's probably gonna be um, suited aces that not achieving, let's say, if my raise calling range is ace 8 suited plus or ace 7 suited plus, so you definitely don't want to shove ace 7 and ace 6 and ace 5. You prefer just to call them.
Nice. So finding the hands directly below your raise call
Yeah, yeah,
and putting them into the call. Nice.
yeah, and still they still dominate a lot of my like weak part of the range, and nice to have some ace x board coverage to not let me go YOLO on those
Nice.
boards.
And you do go for the call here, and that's got to be a good feeling here. Don't pick too many B33 bluffs off, and I mean, there's no better time than final four of the main event.
Oh yeah, and it's a pretty big pot anyway.
Yeah, yeah, that's a huge swing. So, as always, our final question is looking for three recommendations for the viewers, for myself, anything: books, music, movies, TV shows, life hacks, poker tips, whatever you got for us.
All right. So talking about the poker, I think it's very important to be obsessed with this game to succeed as like best player in the world or something like that. Um, so yeah, I really think that people that are obsessed, they're thinking before falling asleep of some ideas about the hands that they played. It's way better than someone completely forgets about the poker outside while he's playing.
Hmm.
Yeah, so obsessions. As movie recommendation for this topic, I would recommend Whiplash.
Nice.
It's
Great movie.
it's pretty good relationship, kind of good relationship between coach and student. That really shows. It's similar to the poker, you know. If you have like obsessed coach that will use your potential as maximum as he can, it's gonna be the best
Are you like
for you.
J.K. Simmons with your students?
Were you rushing or were you dragging?
I don't know.
Start counting.
5, 6,
In
7.
four, damn it! Look at me!
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
Now, was I rushing or was I dragging? Count again.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Rushing or dragging?
Rushing.
So you do know.
Not anymore. When I had more connectivity with my students, let's say connection, when it was maybe 7 players only or 6 players, I was very involved in their real life, and I was pushing them to become better and better. I think now when the group is became way bigger, I'm kind of losing this obsession of opening full potential, but I'm trying to help people to study themselves and
Hmm.
move on.
Nice.
Um, yeah, so this is gonna be like one of the recommendations, and second that I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, that you need to be able to forgive yourself, and the only way is just forgive other people. And this it's the same as like you can only love yourself if you love someone else, you know. You can't be able to do something, and also, yes, sorry, and also don't be too critical when you making those mistakes, even though some of them might be super painful.
Awesome. Nice. That reminds me a lot of the historian Doris Kearns Goodwin was asked, how do you generate more empathy in yourself? And she was saying, read great fiction about other people that have very different lives from you. And I think, yeah, when you can learn to forgive other people, it's, it's not necessarily a one-to-one correlation where now you can forgive yourself, but you can at least see the path.
Yeah, and you always can think of, you can put yourself on his spot, and what you would do as in his shoes. It's always important to understand from perspective of the person and your perspective.
Excellent. Aleksejs Ponakovs, thank you. And I'm going to try and use everything I learned today against you in the 100K tomorrow.
This is gonna be amazing.